Have you ever picked up the guitar just wanting to jam out and play, but instead you freeze? You're stuck in the same old patterns, second guessing every single note that you're supposed to play. Well, you're not alone. Every intermediate guitarist hits this exact same wall, where they can play scales, they can play a bunch of chord shapes, but when it comes to actually making music that flows, for some reason that feels impossible. Well, the good news is it's not impossible. Once you have the right framework that combines all of the scale shapes and chord shapes that you already know how to play, making music with the guitar becomes so much more effortless. Over the past few years, I've earned a music degree, I've written my own songs, I've played gigs, and most importantly, I've helped other guitarists just like you break free from this cycle. Today, I'm giving you the exact same framework that makes this process effortless, so you can just pick up the guitar and play without overthinking. Now, the most important part of this process of just being able to pick up the guitar and play is understanding your key signature. So just like how chords on the fretboard have a shape, the key signature also has a shape. The only difference is that it's just a bit larger and it spans across the entire fretboard. Now, learning the shape of this key signature is less complicated than it might seem. Once you understand that the shape of this key signature that's across the entire fretboard is just a combination of the chord shapes and scale shapes that you've already played before, aligning everything together into the key signature makes the process of picking up the guitar and just playing music feel so much simpler. So first, let's very quickly recap the fundamentals of our key signature. Now, a key signature comes from a major scale, which contains 7 notes. Now, we all know how to make the major scale using the whole, whole, half formula. So if I take the key of G major, I play G, and use the whole, whole, half formula to play the scale all the way up on one string. So this gives me all 7 notes that are inside my G major scale. But the notes alone aren't going to help you. In order to play musically, you also need to understand the chords that these notes create inside of the key signature. So for each of these 7 notes that we just played, we can harmonize them into 7 different chords that belong to our key signature. Now here's where they always line up. The first note is always going to make a major chord. It's going to be G major. The second note always makes a minor chord. It's going to be A minor. The third note always makes a minor chord as well. This is B minor. The fourth note always makes a major chord. The fifth note always makes a major chord. The sixth note always makes a minor chord. And the seventh note always makes a diminished chord. Unfortunately, there isn't a diminished bar chord, but like you can play a diminished shape like this. Now, why does all of this information matter? These chords and the notes they are made from are the foundation that's going to allow us to visualize this shape of the key signature across the entire fretboard, right? So let's say I want to play some extra notes over the chord of A minor, the second chord in the key of G major. So I'm playing A minor over here. If I know that these notes over here in the G major below are also notes from the same key signature, I can kind of combine them with that A minor and it's going to sound nice. Again, these are notes from the same key signature, so I can combine them in any way that I want. I don't have to worry about what the note is. I just have to understand the shape and how they all relate to a key signature. And again, likewise, I could do this with any other chord in the key. So let's say I'm playing like A minor over here, and I know that B minor is the next chord. Again, any of those notes I can combine with that A minor and it's going to sound nice. So I go like... Again, I'm just doing like some completely random noodling. The point isn't to make like a musical masterpiece right now. It's to show you that if all the notes are in the same key signature, all you have to know is just how they line up. And you can choose to play any shape and combine them with that chord that's in the same key signature. And it's always going to sound nice. It's never going to sound god-awful and terrible. It's not going to sound like you're making a mistake. The notes are always going to pair well together. So when you line up all these chords together across the neck, it fills out the shape of this key signature across the fretboard. When you understand that every individual fret for these chord shapes that you play is also going to be notes inside of your key signature, the process of knowing how to pair chords and melodies that are always going to work together becomes so much simpler to understand. Again, you don't have to memorize a bunch of note names to get started. You just have to understand how all of these shapes fit together. And again, they're shapes that you've already played before. So once we can kind of sort of visualize how everything connects, how are we actually supposed to apply this to the fretboard and give ourselves a framework that makes it easy to play music without overthinking? Now, here's where things are going to get powerful. We can actually pair the pentatonic scales with the chords in this key signature as well. So for major and minor chords, just find the matching pentatonic shape and it's instantly going to sound nice. So if a chord is major, so for example I have G major, you want to use pentatonic box shape number 2. So that's the G major chord and that was the G major pentatonic. Now if the chord is minor in your key, like this A minor, just use box shape number 1. So now that we know that you can pair a major or minor pentatonic to the chords inside of this key signature, you can run through all the chords in your key using the pentatonics just like this. So if I play like G major, play this G major pentatonic box shape. If I play A minor pentatonic box, B minor, C major, D major, E minor. So how do we actually use this framework to play through chord progressions? It's one thing just knowing a bunch of stuff about the key signature, how are we supposed to make music with it? So let's say I have a chord progression that is a 2, 4, 6, 5 in the key of G major. That's the 2 chord A minor, the 4 chord C major, 6 chord which is E minor, and the 5 chord which is D major. I just find these bar chord shapes, 2, 4, 6, 5, and I just match the corresponding pentatonic pattern that fits over the top of it. So I play like 2, and then 4, 6, 5, and then back to 2. Again, I'm not creating some musical masterpiece right now, but I'm just trying to explain and show you this thought process. Really, I'm just combining these pentatonic shapes with the chords inside of my key. And I know which chord to go to next because I know the chords that fit inside of my key signature. Again, all of those chords share the same 7 notes as well. So you can just play these 7 notes in completely different random orders. It's always going to sound nice. It's never going to sound terrible. It's never going to sound like you're making a mistake. And again, all of these box shapes are up for grabs. If they belong to your key signature, you can use them in any way that you want. So for example, if I was playing this like A minor and using this kind of box shape over here, and the next chord I had to go to was like that C major. Again, in between that A, we have this B, which means I can also use that B minor box to get to that C. Again, these 7 notes that are inside all of these pentatonic scales, they come from the same key signature. So I can just kind of combine them in all these different ways. So I can go like A minor, B minor, and then into that C major. Again, I can use it to bridge the gap. Again, you can do that with any chord that you want. Let's say I was going like C major to like G major, C major pentatonic, and then like some B minor stuff, A minor, and now I'm at the G major pentatonic. So again, that's how powerful this system is. You don't really have to think too much. If you understand how the pentatonic shapes and the chord shapes that you already know how to play align inside of this key signature, it makes it so much easier to just play shapes without having to overthink about the specific notes that you're playing. Now, if you like what you're seeing so far already and you're an intermediate who wants to break through to the next level of the instrument and understand how to make ideas of your own rather than just copying every other guitarist, check out the link below in the description if you want to conquer improvisation across the fretboard. Now, if you only ever rely upon these pentatonic boxes and these bar chord shapes, you might find yourself getting a bit bored of playing simple melodies over and over, and it also might be a bit frustrating having to always like jump around the fretboard and chase every single chord, and it might be kind of boring just being limited to one spot for each chord. So how can we fix this problem and make our music sound a bit more sophisticated? This is where we want to start looking at where triads overlap onto this framework. Triads are just the chord tones, meaning the roots, the thirds, and the fifths, of the 7 chords from your key signature. When you map out the triad and inversion shapes for each of these chords in your key, you unlock the ability to stop chasing those chord changes. So for example, if I was like A minor over here and I need to go to E minor, that's a really big jump over here. But once you know the triad shapes, instead of jumping all the way over there, I can play A minor over here and then E minor. Again, all in the same spot. So it allows you to anchor yourself to one position and allow the chord tones to come to you rather than chasing them all the time, which is going to give you a much easier strategy for making your improvisation sound more melodic. Again, it makes the guitar so much less frustrating and confusing, and especially when you're playing over chord changes, it can feel like things are going too fast and you fall behind the rhythm section very quickly. Once you understand how to kind of bring everything closer together rather than just chasing it on the fretboard, it makes it so much easier to keep up with the rest of the band. So with the inversions of triads, you'll be able to find multiple locations across the fretboard to play these chord tones. Let's go back to our 2, 4, 6, 5 progression from earlier. I can stay in one spot of my key signature. So again, let's pick this A minor pentatonic. So before, I'd had to go to like C major over here, and then like E minor all the way up here, and then D major even, all the way over here. Again, that's kind of very distant from where I originally was. However, if I know triads and inversions, I can bring everything closer together. So over this A minor pentatonic box, I have this A minor triad that's right here, and instead of jumping to C major over here, I can play that right here. And then to E minor, instead of going all the way across to the fretboard, I can just go E minor right here, and then I have a D major that I can play right here again. You can see they're all in like the same kind of spot on the fretboard, which is around this scale shape. Again, I have this like, again, I have all the like different kind of pentatonic scales from the chords in my key around where all of these triads are located. So I can kind of just mix and match, combine these triad shapes with the scale shapes around that area, and I can just kind of play music without really overthinking. So I go like, again, I'm just kind of noodling around and messing around, but you can see that makes things so much easier for me to kind of navigate around the fretboard. I feel like there's a lot less pressure involved when you can kind of just keep everything in the same spot, because it's very difficult to kind of go. That's quite difficult for me. Like my brain is always kind of like thinking about where to go next. When you keep everything closer together, it becomes easier to predict where that next movement is. And again, once you see how these kind of all overlap over these like kind of like pentatonic shapes inside of your key signature, again, it becomes so much easier to just turn your brain off, just hit the notes inside of that shape, and you just have confidence that they're always going to sound nice, rather than kind of like always overanalyzing and kind of like trying to find the perfect note and kind of being stuck and again guessing your way through the process. So again, once you combine these triads with these scale shapes, you can be anchored in one spot of the net and play through your chord progressions so much easier. Now, you might be thinking that learning all of these triad shapes is going to be really complicated and it's going to take ages and ages and ages, but it's actually a lot simpler than it seems if you learn things in the correct order. If you're tired of just aimless noodling and you want a proven path to effortless improvisation, I've got you covered. Check out the link below in the description. I help intermediates conquer improvisation as fast as possible, and I help them unlock the fretboard so they can create their own ideas without having to rely upon copying other great guitarists. If you feel like you're struggling to make any progress whatsoever and you have absolutely no idea what you're supposed to be doing in order to improve, book a free demo call with me in the description. I'm going to diagnose the problems that you have on the instrument, and I'm going to tell you exactly what you need to practice in order to make some improvements.